Morning, y'all. So I'm here in San Diego, California, beautiful San Diego, California. And I was just sitting downstairs having some coffee, just kind of reflecting and thinking through my day. And I've been really leaning into the question of what does next level look like for me, right? What does next level look like in my own life? And more importantly, how will I get there? I've been, to some degree, wrestling in a beautiful way with the fact that there is more in me and also more for me, that I had not yet achieved the pinnacle of my ability and or really my purpose. And so as I'm leaning into what that looks like to really go to the next level, I can't help but think through the concept of consistency, and not the type of consistency that just looks like doing the same thing over and over and over again in order to achieve an outcome and or goal. But the magnitude of consistency, specifically when you're pursuing something like a vision, a purpose, a calling, when you're leading a team, when you have a goal, something that you're going after. Because there are two yeses I believe that you give whenever you're pursuing something. There's the first yes to go after it, which is critical. But then there's a second yes to keep going after it that is crucial. Because that first yes is really where we make the resolve to go without having yet experienced the resistance that you will face in the pursuit of accomplishing what you're setting out to accomplish. And that resistance is a real thing. You see, most people talk about that first yes of making the resolve, but very few talk about the second yes of pushing past the resistance that is constant. And it changes as you go from level to level. There's a saying that says another level, another devil. The easiest way to encapsulate that thought is that the higher you go, to some degree, the more complex the challenges become. But in the same way, embracing the journey, growing through the journey allows you to develop a greater level of capacity to deal with that level of complexity. So it doesn't necessarily get easier as you evolve, but your ability to manage it, the way that you manage what you do becomes a lot easier as you grow and as you obviously become a better version of yourself, specifically to the space that you're committing to. But here's what I'm after. Maybe you can resonate with me as you think about next level in your own life. That in order for me to achieve more, to go to the next level, I have to have a focus, and how I choose to focus matters. Specifically, again, because the resolve is the first thing, but then every resolve is going to be met by resistance. And at that point, you have a choice. Will I continue to push in the pursuit of this intended purpose, or will I allow the things that are impacting my ability to push to cause me to be paralyzed? John Hope Bryant encapsulates a success thought like this, and I love it. He says that success is moving from failure to failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. And that's so powerful, so critical. That it's not just moving from success to success, but doing so without the loss of enthusiasm, zeal, passion, the level of conviction that is necessary to not be controlled by your circumstance, but to stay bold in your stance in the vision to accomplish and achieve what you set out to achieve. And maybe for you watching this right now, you have said yes to that first move of saying yes to the vision, and you're starting to put the pieces together. Maybe you've been doing that for weeks or for even years, and you have experienced some resistance, but still, you know, there's more for you. So today I want to have just a brief conversation around this concept of output and outcomes. Because what I believe is that the next level for most of us looks like being being output driven and outcome focused. Let me say it again. That next level, and if you're taking notes, maybe you want to write this down, is to be outcome driven and outcome focused. And in that order, I love the saying that says, control what you can control. And the truth is, we can't necessarily control fully the outcomes because there are way too many variables that exist that can impact your outcomes. Things that you don't necessarily control, things that you don't ask for, from the market to people expectations to changes in our government, changes in our country, changes in the economy. There's a lot of things that can impact the outcome. But what we ultimately have full control over is our output. What we choose to show up as, or who we choose to show up as, and what we choose to show up to do. And if we do so in a way that is truly aligned, a way that we're operating from clarity, operating from this level of energy and vitality, we know that we're showing up as our best. And that becomes the new metric for success of how did your day go? How did your week go? How did your month go? At the end of the day, I was outcome driven, output driven, but also outcome focused. And I'm not necessarily putting one over the other because I do believe that when you're output driven and outcome focused, you will allow your outcomes to become feedback that refines your output. Let me say it again. That when you're output driven but outcome focused, you will allow your outcomes to become feedback for your output, which is really powerful because the way you get better at how you show up is by measuring what happens as you show up. And so it's critical that as you think about the next level, the thought becomes, how do I need to show up in order to produce the outcomes that are most important to my success? And as I'm producing those outcomes, how will those outcomes continue to refine my outputs? But let's go a little bit deeper. There's a question I've been stewing on, and I think it is critical. If we're going to talk about outputs and outcomes, we actually have to start the equation as at inputs. So there is an input that allows you the output to produce outcomes. So now we've just added another dynamic of input, output, outcomes. Do you know that there are things you have to do intentionally in order to show up consistently so that you can produce effectively? Let me say this in a different way, maybe in the form of a question. What do you need to do intentionally that will allow you to show up consistently in order to produce effectively? So the input focus, intentionality of input now looks like those morning routines, the prayer, the devotion, the planning, the growth, the reading, the stuff that allows you to achieve clarity, alignment, and have the energy that is necessary so that your outputs can be true, they can be maximized, they can be focused in order to produce the outcomes. So if I was to leave you with a thought today that maybe your next level really looks like not so much being obsessed about the outcomes, knowing that the outcomes matter because they to some degree quantify if you're making progress, but to really become output driven. Am I showing up every day doing my best, giving my best in a way that is leading to the best results? And not only am I doing that, but what does it take for me to do so consistently? So today I want to encourage you to be output driven and outcome focused. But remember, there are things you have to do intentionally in order to show up consistently so that you can produce effectively. And if your mind can conceive it and your heart will believe it, and your hands can create the life, the impact, the legacy, the love, the power you desire. Until the next time we talk, stay empowered.